ready, Mr. Administrator.
We're set to go.
Good evening. I'll call the November 4th Health and Human Services Committee meeting to order. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to address the committee? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go on to resolutions.
Lots. First resolution is authorizing an agreement for provision of services to elderly of Jefferson County.
Motion? Mr. Nabuwanek, second. Mr. Doldo, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Next resolution is authorizing an agreement for operation of the Office for Aging's Nutrition Program.
Motion? Mr. Doldo, second. Mr. Nabuwanek, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget relative to district funding for Community Services Department.
Is there a motion? Mr. Nabuwanek, second. Mr. Doldo, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Next is reappointing members of the Community Services Board.
Motion. Mr. Maxson, second. Mr. Doldo, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreements for provision of mental hygiene services.
Motion. Mr. Doldo, second. Mrs. Grant, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Now we move on to public health items. Lots. Reappointing members to the Jefferson County Public Health Services Advisory Board.
The motion. Mr. Doldo, second. Mr. Nabuwanek, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Reappointing members to the Jefferson County Public Health Service Professional Advisories Committee.
Motion. Mr. Doldo, second. Mr. Drake, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement with NMS Labs for toxology testing services.
Motion. Mr. Doldo, second. Mrs. Grant, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement for provision of X-ray services to the Medical Examiner Program.
Motion. Mr. Maxson, second. Mrs. Grant, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Next resolution is authorizing agreement for chest X-ray services in connection with the Public Health Service Tuberculosis Clinic.
Motion. Mrs. Grant, second. Mr. Doldo, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing the contractual appointment of Emergency Medical Services Core Sponsor Medical Director.
Motion. Mr. Doldo, second. Mrs. Grant, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement with the Community Action Planning Council of Jefferson County, Incorporated, for the provision of nutritional services to the Public Health Service.
Motion. Mr. Nabuwanek, second. Mrs. Grant, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement with the Hospice of Jefferson County for registered professional nursing services rendered to the Public Health Service.
Motion. Mr. Maxson, second. Mr. Doldo, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement with the Center for Disease Detection for laboratory services in connection with the Public Health Service Diagnostic and Treatment Center.
Motion. Mr. Doldo, second. Mrs. Grant, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement with Lewis County for the provision of diagnostic and treatment center services.
Motion? Mr. Dildo, second. Mr. Maxon, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement with Carthage Area Hospital for laboratory services in connection with the Public Health Service Diagnostic and Treatment Center.
Motion? Mr. Nabuanick, second. Mrs. Grant, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement for the provision of certain professional services for the medical examiner's office.
Motion? Mr. Dildo, second. Mrs. Grant, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement for provision of certain professional services to the medical examiner's office.
Motion? Mr. Maxon, second. Mr. Dildo, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget relative to public health department accounts.
Motion. Mr. Nabuanick, second. Mr. Maxon, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Last resolution is amending the 2020 county budget relative to additional revenue from the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance.
Motion. Mr. Dildo, second. Mrs. Grant, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Wow.
You spend a lot of money this month. You know, as far as the resolutions goes, obviously there's the one that we just passed over, one with medical examiner's fees. That particular account was running over budget. Is there a particular explanation on that?
Autopsies, and we've been rather busy with autopsies this year, unfortunately more so than what was originally budgeted. So the intent is to cover the rest of the year.
Overdoses for this year primarily, or?
Likely, yes.
Most unfortunate. Anything else to come before the committee? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Maxon, second. Mrs. Grant.
to call to order the County's Finance and Rules Committee. I guess this is our November meeting, or maybe our October meeting in November. Never quite understand that, but it's fun. Off of privilege of the floor. Anybody care to see no one coming to the microphone? We could move on to Finance and Rules sponsored resolutions.
First resolution of the evening is revising and adopting the 2021 tentative budget.
Have a motion, please. Legislator Nabalonic, Legislator Gerald, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Next is appropriation for conduct of county government for fiscal year 2021.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson. Legislator Gerald, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Adopting capital plan for 2021 through 2026.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald. Legislator Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Next resolution is certification of taxes to the city of Watertown. We'll have those numbers for everybody next week.
Have a motion, please. Legislator Nabalonic. Legislator Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Levying tax map maintenance charges for 2021.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson. Legislator Gerald, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Next is authorizing vacating judgment of foreclosure of owners of certain parcels of real estate, of real property, and discontinuance of foreclosure proceedings.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson. Legislator Nabalonic, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Next resolution is approving mortgage tax report.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald. Legislator Nabalonic, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Amending 2020 county budget in relation to employment and training department.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald. Legislator Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing appointments to the Jefferson Lewis Workforce Development Board.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson, Legislator Nabalonic, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Moving on, I was remiss in not asking if the minutes required of last month's meeting required any changes. Anybody? I guess they'll stand as presented. I apologize. On to general services sponsored resolutions.
First is authorizing agreement amending the 2020 county budget and capital plan in relation to the New York State Research and Development Authority Clean Energy Project funding.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson, Legislator Drake. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget in relation to recycling and waste management.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald. Legislator Nabalonic, thank you. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget in relation to recycling and waste management.
Motion, please. Legislator Nabalonic, Legislator Gerald. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget in relation to the Sheriff's Office.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson. Legislator Gerald. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Recognize the Department of Justice State Criminal Alien Assistance Program funding and amending the 2020 county budget in relation thereto.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson, Legislator Nabalonic. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Does everyone have a copy of this additional?
No, that's your note and mine.
Oh, okay. There is an additional resolution.
Yes. One more that had a financial implication we didn't catch when we were putting the agenda together. Authorizing agreement between the County of Jefferson and the Development Authority of North Country for broadband mapping and inventory in Jefferson County.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald, Legislator Nebelonik, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. On to for all the money that they spent, there's not very many that came to us. Health and Human Services Committee-sponsored resolution.
The first is amending the 2020 county budget relative to district funding for Community Services Department.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson, Legislator Drake, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next is amending the 2020 county budget relative to Public Health Department accounts.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald, Legislator Nebelonik, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget relative to additional revenue from the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald, Legislator Nebelonik, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Well, that went smoothly. We have a tentative budget, and there are a few items there, revenue and expenditure spreadsheet, and reports from the clerk and health benefits report. Is there any other business for the committee? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Legislator Gerald, Legislator Johnson, all in favor? We are adjourned.